everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
I'm Adam.
And today we've got more rankings for you. Been kind of picking up the pace on the lists after not having quite as many in the second half of 2022, I think. So 2023, we're here with list number 2, I believe, of January.
Coming out hot.
Yes, or coming out cold might be a better way to put this episode.
Oh, Nate, you clever W.
Thank you very much. Adam is in dismay. He might just leave.
So good though.
It was apt. I'll say that.
Today, we are breaking down our top 5 winter movies of all time. So again, with a lot of our top 5 lists, we can interpret this in any way we want. Although I would imagine we're all going to have movies that take place in winter. I suppose it's possible there's a movie out there where it's really hot and people talk about hoping that it's winter, and you could pick that.
See,
but I don't think any of us did.
I found a different one that was actually Sunshine. If you remember that movie from back in college when we watched it, it takes place on a spaceship, but technically the premise is that the Earth is in a perpetual winter. So they're trying to restart the sun so that we can warm the Earth back up and survive. And I was like, that's a choice.
I think we do get a couple. We get 2 like very brief shots on Earth too, so that would totally count. Yeah, I was thinking about just like putting on like the Winter Soldier on here, or Winter Phone, or just anything with winter in the title. But yeah, I mean, I guess did we want to just kind of like you mentioned, it's open to interpretation. I don't know about you guys, but I went into this basically. It was all about the weather. It was what movies are snowy and cold and icy. I didn't go anything like holiday related or anything like, like Hoosiers where like it's basketball season and that's the winter or like, or like I, Tanya or anything. Like I kept it basically to like, what are the movies that capture that? Like you wake up, you got to go to work and you go outside and you're like, oh my God, it is like horrible out here. Like what movies capture?
Yeah, I definitely went with there have to be lots of outdoor scenes with snow. Like winter has to be a part of the movie.
And even better if it like plays a role in the story. Yeah. Like for instance, I don't have The Shining on my list. That takes place during winter. There's a few times with the blizzard and then obviously the famous labyrinth scene at the end. But like when I think of that movie, I don't think of winter right away. And like, that movie isn't necessarily what's important is what happens inside the hotel, like not like the few times you go outside it. Like it just doesn't, it didn't feel like it didn't fit for me.
So before we started recording, you walked away for a couple of minutes and I said to Adam, I'm kind of surprised Dylan doesn't have The Shining on his list. And then we talked about it for like 30 seconds and we both figured like probably just because most of the movie takes place indoors.
Yeah.
It's a great movie to talk about like that aspect of winter, that like being stuck inside can be scarier than being outside. But when like what you said, when you think of that movie, you don't necessarily think of the snowy stuff first. You think of the scary part and the all the iconic stuff, the carpet and all that.
2 twin girls in that bloody elevator.
Yeah.
That scary old lady.
And the same movie could have been made where maybe it's just like a hurricane outside and they're all stuck. I don't know. Yeah, it just doesn't feel like winter movies.
It's a weather phenomena of sorts.
Yeah. I want movies where like the first thing I think of when you bring up the movie is like the weather,
like the snow and the cold.
We'll save some of the rest of those for our honorable mentions. I have a few
for sure. I've got some good honorable mentions.
So yeah.
All right.
My list is just going to be the 2 Frozen movies and the 3 Mighty Ducks movies.
God dang it!
I was thinking a Mighty Ducks movie was going to make it.
I knew it.
Part of me wanted to do that, but that would have just derailed this entire thing and not really been the point of it at all. I don't even like the Frozen movies. So, should we start with Adam again, or should we have a different opener this time?
I'll start this time.
Dylan's starting.
All right. So my number 5 is a movie that we've been talking about a lot recently, and that is the classic Western from 1971, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. Not The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, is McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
You know what, Adam, you're dragging stuff around on me.
I understand. I'm moving Dylan's stuff to the...
I understand why you did it. But you just like switched it, and I clicked the same spot, and all of a sudden it wasn't Dylan's movie.
I switched
anymore.
it like 5-10 seconds ago, way before you clicked it. I'm on like number 1. I'm moving Dylan's number 1.
All
later.
Right.
So
I guess I'll choose to believe you.
Wow.
All right.
You say so. Dylan, your movie.
My number 5 choice, you guys, for my favorite winter movie is McCabe and Mrs. Miller. We just did an episode all about this. We've talked about it a lot, and we also made a decision going into this list and future lists that if a movie if we have repeats, or if a movie is on another person's list, we're going to wait to talk about it until it gets highest or lowest, I guess, depending on how you want to interpret that. But we're going to wait to talk about it once so that we don't just talk about it multiple times. Especially since we've already been talking about it. We're just going to turn to the McCabe and Mrs. Miller podcast.
Right.
Speak, Film, and Enter spinoff. Speak, McCabe, and
Enter. We should all get really big coats.
Yes, absolutely.
That would be incredible.
Walk around downtown Minneapolis and just our giant fucking Western coats.
Absolutely.
It's a move. But yeah, that's my number 5. Great winter Western. A lot of reasons. I'll get to it later. So
so this will be on my list later. So we'll talk about it then.
Mm-hmm.
So then, Adam, you're next on here. I assume that means you're we're doing you now.
Yeah, I can go. I can go second. My number 5 pick is the movie Hannah from 2011. So this stars Saoirse Ronan in one of her first movies. I think one of maybe her big breakouts. It also stars Eric Bana, and Cate Blanchett is actually the I'm sorry, my chair. Cate Blanchett is actually the villain in this movie, and she's tasked with hunting down this girl. Eric Bana is the father. He's a former special forces guy, intelligence guy, who raises this girl to be the perfect assassin. And so she's tracked down by Cate Blanchett's character and intelligence agency and stuff. It's a blast. The soundtrack is phenomenal for this movie. It's very kind of like Bourne Ultimatum meets like Black Widow, I would say.
Okay.
It's super fun.
I can get into that.
Yeah, there's
also Saoirse Ronan's like one of my favorite.
Yeah, and she's super young.
Nate, you should see it for her performance alone, just in that role.
And Cate Blanchett. This movie is like, if I'm gonna like an action movie, this is gonna be it.
Yeah, and so the reason why I picked this being in the winter list is because it starts off with they live in a secluded area in the woods that basically no one can find because Eric Bana is so insane and trying to get away from intelligence agencies and stuff like that. He just lives in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, and it's just like the dead of winter when he's been training her for 16 years to be the perfect assassin, and that plays out throughout the rest of the movie. It's winter throughout. But
is he like if Jack Bauer had a daughter?
Yeah, I think so. Probably. Okay. I didn't watch a lot of 24, but yeah, he's just the most paranoid, but like most ruthless, like former operative that you can find. So
yeah, I watched the trailer for this yesterday, thinking maybe I'll watch this today going into the list, but I felt pretty good about my 5, and I was like, I don't want to complicate things at this point.
Yeah. I think Dylan and I talked about this a couple months back on a roundup or something, because I think we'd both seen it around the same time. And really liked it.
Yep. Yeah. I didn't see it when it came out, but I did recently see it on streaming, and I liked it. And yeah, it's definitely worth checking out just because it's like this weird peek into an alternate universe where Saoirse Ronan just kept taking like big budget, like superhero roles instead of like smart dramas. It is interesting. You got to see it just for that.
Yeah, that's the biggest reason why I'm intrigued by it is because she went like the Scarlett Johansson route instead of doing all these like costume dramas.
Yeah. And again, I just want to impress upon you the music in this movie is fantastic. So
awesome.
Check it out for that.
Yeah, I'll definitely check this out. My parents have actually watched this movie and I haven't, which is just a very strange feeling for a movie like this.
Yeah. All right, that's my number 5.
On to my number 5, which we gave a slight peek at already for those of you on YouTube, is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, specifically the David Fincher version from 2011, starring Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara and a whole host of other A-listers. This movie is just a very dark, gritty crime drama set in the middle of this small Swedish town in winter. And I feel like you don't see too many like murder mysteries in winter, really, where it's just like really cold, like small town kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just adds an element.
You are on a roll today, sir.
Adam's gonna quit the podcast pretty soon. I think
it's gonna be a tough.
His patience is wearing thin.
It's middle of winter right now as we do this, and I'm stuck inside, and I'm going crazy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make a top 5 Nate's winter pun list.
I'll need 3 more. There's a lot of pressure on them.
You're on a roll. I like the odds.
Okay.
I'm sure you can.
But it just adds an atmosphere to this movie that a lot of. I mean, the Pale Blue Eye just came out on Netflix, starring Christian Bale and Harry Melling. Do I get that name right?
Melling,
yeah. Which I was not a big fan of, but the atmosphere for it and the setting was really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of reminded me of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo when thinking about this list. And it's just, it just so cold in this Swedish town as Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara just continually run into dead ends. And it's just it's a fun movie and also really dark at the same time. And definitely one that I just think the winterness of this adds to a lot of the tension.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I've only seen this once. Is it all take place in like there's snow on the ground like outside? Because I remember it being like cold and gray.
The vast majority of it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I gotta watch this again. I remember.
Yeah, all like the present day stuff. There's some flashbacks that I can't remember if it's snowy in the town during the flashbacks. Okay. And then there's some stuff where he's like in the city before he goes there that I think like it's cold, but it's not like this snow-capped small town.
That's how most or parts of Hannah are as well. That it's not completely in the winter. It's like winter time, but there's not snow everywhere that they go. So I feel that. You can work with that.
So now on to Dylan for his number 4, and I just got to say I love this pick.
Yes, my number 4, I just watched it. I was able to rewatch it today, and I'm so happy I did, is 2004's big blockbuster climate change disaster movie, The Day After Tomorrow.
It's a great pick.
Yes,
it is.
Written and directed by Roland Emmerich with a kind of star-studded little cast here. We have a young Jake Gyllenhaal leading things off. We also have Dennis Quaid, Emmy Rossum is in there. And that's pretty much it. But
there's a couple other faces you'd recognize.
Ian Holm. Yes, that's the one I was gonna. Yes, Ian Holm. That's the reason I wanted to go to the cast list because I totally forgot that he was in this movie, and he brings a little gravitas to it. But yeah, I mean, I feel like everyone our age has seen this. I feel like most people have by now. I found out today that it made like $750 million worldwide, all by the end. So good for Roland. Yep. I saw this a couple times in theaters.
Yeah.
And yeah, I felt like this just had to make the cut because I mean, it just takes the danger of the winter climate to another level where it's kind of like the monster here. And, besides the fact that scientifically it's all nonsense, the idea of like a winter hurricane where the eye is like a polar vortex that like freezes everything like in place. Like, oh my God, genius. Creates for some great suspenseful moments. A couple good little 2004 comedy chucklers in there. A good little bit about which books to burn and some other things.
Yeah.
The wolves are completely ridiculous, but also great at the same time. Just such an.
It's just a weird scene. It's just a weird scene, but it's fun.
I also gotta say, I love the way that they show how high the snow is, which is that some of our heroes, while traveling, fall through the roof of a mall.
Yes. Yeah. It's just little things like that. Really clever ideas for not only like the big storm disaster scenes, like you have the tornadoes in LA, you have the huge balls of hail that fall in Tokyo, and the one business guy's like trying to make it, and he's trying to like use his. I totally forgot about that. That was great. And then I obviously remember that the big freight ship is outside the library or whatever, but I forgot the scene where before the snow falls and it's just flooded and like they realize that the ship is out there and like the noise of it like the underwater metal with the streets is so cool and weird, and like, yeah, I had a great time. So yeah, just for the fact that alone that like the cold outside is actually like the whole thing that's trying to kill the whole human race, I had to put it on here for winter movies, and it was a good time.
This is a great pick. This is easily one of my favorite disaster movies.
Yeah, really well done.
Is the best constructed disaster movie.
And there were so many really terrible ones that came out after this, but I feel like this one actually nailed most of the formula. It's pretty dang good.
Our next pick here from Adam almost seems like if they hadn't kind of gotten their shit together at the end of the Day After Tomorrow, we could be in this movie.
That's a good transition.
Yeah,
I think so. Where the cold, it's so bad that you have to stay on a moving train forever or die. This is Snowpiercer. Back in 2013, which has now been made into a show and all that stuff. But talk about a star-studded cast: Chris Evans, Tilda Swinton, Song Kang-ho, Ed Harris, John Hurt, Octavia Spencer, Allison Pill, Jamie Bell. Just
so a little better cast than Day After Tomorrow.
Also, we should thank this movie for introducing the world to cockroach protein bars.
Yes. As what you survive on nowadays.
Yeah.
I love this movie for not only its themes, but when we talk about the winter aspect, there's a little bit of hope in this movie as they've gone around the Earth once a year. It takes a full year to go around the Earth in this train that's been constructed, and they're seeing some melting happening on the one plane, like as they cross over some giant gorge. And they're like, there's finally some hope. We've been doing this for like 30 years already. Like there's finally a little bit of hope that we can actually survive outside again. But the whole thing takes place on this, a train that's got to go through all these ice blocks and a bunch of snowy areas. But again, the themes of this movie, the classist stuff that happens is great. I thought Chris Evans did a wonderful job in this movie. I thought it's perfectly creepy while also being anti-capitalist to a certain degree. There's
not to a certain degree. That is the
pretty heavy degree.
Pretty heavy-handed.
I loved it. When I first saw it, I was really taken by it, and I really like it. So it's just a perfect, again, one of those movies that it sucks worse to be inside sometimes than outside. Even though outside's going to kill you, inside will just kill you longer and slower.
Yeah. So. Does this movie maybe have the most Tilda Swinton performance?
Yeah, probably.
I think it's up there.
Definitely up
there.
Yeah.
Nobody else could have been cast for that.
No.
I was gonna say too, this movie's kind of one of the earlier ones that I remember, really word of mouth movies.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I definitely did not see this in theaters. I don't really know anyone who did, but it felt like it was on Netflix, and it just people started talking about it, and then before you know it, all sorts of people have seen it. Have you seen it? Have you seen it? And then it got such a following that now there's a show based on it.
Its second life after Parasite was such a global phenomenon.
Yeah, well, because this introduced American audiences, I think, to Song Kang-ho to a certain degree, and
Bong Joon-ho.
No, Song Kang-ho.
Sorry,
the actor.
I was
But Bong Joon-ho, the director too.
The director as well, but Song Kang-ho, and then they came back with Parasite. So both of them were kind of like, these are people you're going to have to pay attention to because they're going to make good shit and you're going to like it. So
yeah, for sure.
And Chris Evans in a non-Captain America role.
Yeah, in the middle of all the Captain America roles.
Yeah, good for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, so it's my number 4.
Awesome. My number 4 is definitely winter heavy.
Okay.
This is a 90s Disney family sports movie called Iron Will, which is about a kid. It's about a young man, probably like a 17, 18-year-old who basically it's about the Iditarod.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's not exactly what the race is, but it's basically that. It's a sled dog race.
Oh, I've definitely wow.
Yeah, this is a movie I watched with my dad a lot as a kid. I mean, when you're like a 6 to 8-year-old boy, this movie is just incredible. And also, just want to call out some amazing work on the character names here.
Yeah,
our hero's name is Will Stoneman, which is just great. And the villain, so to speak, is played by Brian Cox, and his character's name is Angus McTeague. Which, bravo.
That is great.
That is A+ work right there.
There's a lot. There's a lot of good character names here.
Yeah, holy Borg shit. Gillerson.
Yes.
Devereaux.
Grovin. I really like Ned Dodd.
Yeah, that's got Ned Dodd simplicity to it.
DeFontaine sounds like a
DeFontaine.
DeFontaine.
And then you know, and then Harry Kingsley, which is classic.
Yeah, Kevin Spacey is in this movie. But basically the kid, it's a classic kind of Disney movie where the kid's dad, he's from North Dakota. The kid's dad is going to enter it because they're kind of poor. He's going to try to make money for his son to go to college. And then when they're out dog racing, the two of them one day, there's an accident and his dad falls into a river and dies. And so then Will decides to join. And of course, he's just a kid and everybody else is like a grizzled, like hardened warrior of the North. And it's just this long race and it's just outside, like basically the entire movie. You get small little respites when they get to the check-in points where it's just like, oh, indoors and hot soup for a night. And then you're back outside again. Yeah. And a great ending.
Like I 100% watched this in school at some point.
Yeah.
Like this was shown to me like at an after school program or a sub was in and they showed this around winter break. Like, I feel like I've seen this movie, but I would love to rewatch it because, well, now that I bet it holds up.
You should rewatch it. I mean, it's on Disney Plus. You can probably rent it in other places as well. This is definitely a pick from my youth, but one of the first ones that came to mind for me when we decided to do the winter movies list.
Nice.
Gotcha. I did see in the trivia here that this movie is a fictionalized account of the 1917 Winnipeg to St. Paul dog sled race. So that's super fun. It's nice.
Yeah, that's what it. So a lot of it, it ends in St. Paul as well. So strong Minnesota connections here.
Nice little, local connection. Nice. Love it. All right.
Moving on to Dylan's number 3. More snow.
All the snow.
More snow. Yes, it's not a warm movie. So my number 3 is getting some Tarantino on the board here. 2015's The Hateful Eight.
Yeah,
which is definitely, in keeping with the McCabe and Mrs. Miller theme of winter Western. And this one I had just a little higher than McCabe and Mrs. Miller because, the first half hour of that movie really of McCabe and Mrs. Miller isn't super snowy. I mean, mostly it's that awesome climactic shootout town scene that's like, wow. Yeah. Whereas The Hateful Eight from the beginning, like there is a snowstorm, we have to get to this one place to take refuge, and kind of that's the idea is now you're stuck in this place, you're snowed in with these strangers, and shenanigans ensue. But I just think throughout the whole movie it has that good it has that good cozy feeling that you like, right, when it's really cold out, but also the cold outside plays like a role and is always present as like a thing that he's either discussed about or actively involved in, and of course Tarantino, he's a little self-indulgent, so of course we get scenes where it's like they have to go out to the John, right, and it's like, oh well, actually in a blizzard like this you need to like mark the path, and it's like this whole process. It's like this whole thing that like someone has to go do for like a half hour to like, and like just all the
he drew the short straw too. Like that's an ordeal.
Yep, and the thing with like the broken door and just the snow, just always just wanting to come in. I just when I think about The Hateful Eight, that's like the first thing I think of is like blizzard, everyone's snowed in. That's the setup. So I wanted to put it on the list, so that's mine. 2015's The Hateful Eight. And you recently did just see this for the first time, right, Nate?
Yeah, about a month ago. A little less than a month ago.
Okay. What did you think, just very briefly?
I liked it. I liked it better than the rest of Tarantino's historical stuff that he's been doing recently, which is maybe a ridiculous comment to most people, but I'm not a huge fan of those 3 movies.
Even the Inglourious Basterds?
Yeah, I like it better than Inglourious Basterds.
You like The Hateful Eight more than Inglourious Basterds?
There's a specific reason I don't like Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We can get into that now and turn this.
No, we don't.
Thing, but I don't.
In my head, I thought you were a big Inglourious Basterds guy, but
I've soured on it more since Django and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, and they have some similarities that just I don't like.
All right. Next episode is a Tarantino check-in.
Yeah.
It's a group discussion on Tarantino. But you did like it? The Hateful Eight?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. There you go.
Yeah, the last hour is fucking great. I mean, it's definitely too long, but the last hour is so good.
Yeah, isn't this movie like 3:15 or something like that?
It's
like
2 hours.
2:40.
It's 2 hours and 48 minutes, unless you want to watch the extended version on Netflix, which is broken up into 4 parts. And I have done that, and I also thought that was delightful.
All right, on to Adam's number 3. We already kind of ignored our rule, but I think that's because Adam, we didn't notice that you had this at number 3.
Oh yeah, Adam. Whoops.
No, we already talked about it. So Day After Tomorrow is my number 3 pick. Like everything we just said, it's the perfect The Climate Will Kill You with Cold movie.
Yeah.
The enemy is ourselves by way of the weather. So a lot of fantastic stuff in here. So
awesome. So my number 3 and Dylan's number 2, we're keeping it local. We've got Fargo from the Coen brothers. Just an absolute classic. Yeah. I mean, Frances McDormand's character is just one of the best in movie history. I think, especially in a movie like a kind of detective police procedural, combining that with just other great performances from like Steve Buscemi and William Macy, and that terrifying dude. I can never remember his name. Yes.
Yeah, he's so good.
Just wants his pancakes.
Yeah, no, and
also I always forget John Carroll Lynch is in this movie.
But yeah, I think this, I mean, if you're talking winter movies, this pretty much has everything. This has the whole, the perfect formula, you know, and with the Minnesota connection and just, you know, the weather, it definitely plays a role in the plot. It is ever present. It is like, you cannot escape it. And just a fantastic classic crime caper, or not necessarily caper, but crime kind of
black comedy,
Coen brothers magic, basically.
Absolutely.
So, what more can be said? And actually, wait, one more thing can be said.
Okay.
Fantastic, the scene where Buscemi chases down the witnesses in the car on the highway.
Oh yeah.
And it's all at night, so all you get is the lights, and they try to turn off the lights, and then just that whole sequence is just a great use of winter rural driving.
This is like what they were building up to with Blood Simple.
Yes.
Like a lot of things they did earlier in their career was building up to like the near perfection that is Fargo.
Amen to that.
On to Adam's number 2, which I think would probably be, Dylan and I would both probably have on our honorable mentions list.
Indeed.
Wind River. So this is a movie starring Elizabeth Olsen and Jeremy Renner. It follows a veteran hunter helping an FBI agent, the hunter being Jeremy Renner, the FBI agent being Elizabeth
Olsen.
Sorry, thank you. They investigate a murder of a young woman on a Native American reservation in Wyoming. This is a fascinating movie. I didn't know what to expect when I first clicked on it a couple years ago when it first came out. It's from 2017. It's winter the entire movie in Wyoming, and it takes place near an oil well, or an oil company has purchased land and is drilling for oil in Wyoming. This is much too dark sometimes to actually like just sit down and be like, oh, this will be a good movie to watch because it's like cozy. It's not cozy. It's uncomfortable. But it is fantastic.
No, I agree. I have this in my honorable mentions as well. I think this checks all the boxes. The cold, like you said, is ever present. It's part of the plot. It's part of the story. It leads to a particularly memorable moment later in the movie, which is just great. And it's just I think this definitely counts. And like you said, as opposed to being a like cozy, it's cold outside, let's watch a movie. This one is like it's as dark and cold as the weather outside is. Yeah. So you got to be ready for that. But it's very effective, and it has a message that is important. So I definitely check it out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, and this is from Taylor Sheridan, who also wrote the screenplays for Sicario and Hell or High Water, and he's behind Yellowstone in 1883. And this was the first movie he directed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like any of those things and you haven't seen Wind River, then you should definitely check this out.
I was going to ask where he went after that run. He had a great run there that we've talked about a lot on the podcast.
Yeah, he made a movie that came out in 2020, I think, or maybe 2021 with Angelina Jolie. That came out on HBO Max about like some kid trying to escape wildfire out west. Didn't get a lot of buzz, but then started. I mean, yeah, I don't know exactly how long ago Yellowstone started because I've never watched it, but it looks like he's gone more towards TV.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Well, those have been, I mean, obviously Yellowstone exploded, so that became like a whole thing. So you're going to go that direction for a little while until it kind of its run is over, and then you're going to focus on other stuff. But yeah, very good cast, very good directing and writing.
Nice.
For sure. Now my number 2, which was Dylan's number 5, is McCabe and Mrs. Miller. I mean, I talked about on our review of that movie, how this just feels so much like throw this movie on in the winter, like at night when it's snowing, like if you got the fire going too. It's just a cozy kind of winter movie, because for most of the movie, it's just kind of them building up this town, and you get a lot of great winter shots. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Dylan, it gets more violent toward the end in one of the most beautiful looking and best shot winter scenes ever.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
But we just did an entire episode on this, so we'll link to that, or we've already linked to that wherever I decide to put it.
Put it both places. Catch them on the front and
definitely go check that out for us gushing about why it's great. The only thing that I forgot to mention in that episode, and I just wanted to mention before we move on to the number 1, is what put this over the top and got this to number 5 on my list was the scene when there's the guy outside the bar, the drunk guy, and he's just like dancing on the ice. He's kind of just like shuffling around and swaying back and forth, and he's dancing on the ice. And I had never seen anything like it, and it's like oddly just like kind of hypnotic. And it's just like for a second I was like, yeah, like I could see people back then getting around a circle and seeing this guy just kind of shuffle and jive his way across the ice, like while they play a little Western banjo music or whatever. Like it was a whole vibe, or fiddle. They were fiddling, I think. Oh my gosh, like that was so. I've never seen that in any other movie, so that's what got it over the top and made it number 5 on my list.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I was upset after we recorded the McCabe and Mrs. Miller episode that I forgot to mention that.
Yeah,
it's like ice dancing is like an activity, and as soon as they were doing it, like I was just like, oh, I could totally see, like, it's winter. There's like,
what else are you gonna do?
400 people in this town in the mountains in Washington. Like, you're not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah, there's only one poker table.
Right.
What everyone else is gonna do.
Somebody's just gonna go outside and see how long they can dance on the ice for. It's great.
Yeah, terrific. All right.
And number 1, we all have the same number 1.
Unanimous.
That hasn't happened in a while.
It hasn't.
This is. I mean, how do you pick anything else?
Yes, it is the absolute classic from 1982, John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yes. I mean, it combines the two, right, that we've talked about, where kind of like the elements versus the isolation of having to be inside. The Thing has both.
Yes.
Where they unearth this thing, and also the beginning of this movie with just the wolf or the dog running with the helicopter is amazing.
Yep.
And gives just it's a really good way to introduce you to like such a desolate landscape.
Yeah.
And kind of show the scope of this, while also having this intriguing thing going on that isn't what you think. It's just such a great opener that achieves so many things at once. And then once, shit hits the fan, it's just brilliant.
And it's an unrelenting cold outside too. It's every time that someone goes outside, it's just nasty out. They're just getting pounded with wind, and it's just this unrelenting, like, you are stuck here. And that adds to the horror kind of tension because it's very clear, kind of like when it's on like a spaceship or something, where it's like, yeah, there's nowhere anyone is gonna go. Like we're either all gonna die out here, or we're gonna figure this out.
We're gonna figure it out. Yeah,
yeah.
I can't remember what happens to the two people in the helicopter. Do they just fly away? Because I thought they land.
They do land. Yeah, I mean, it's the very beginning of the movie, so and it's from 1982, so I think it's okay to spoil. So they do land. The dog takes refuge at the camp, right, where everyone else is. They land and they come up to the camp like with guns to be like, we have to kill, but they don't speak English, and nobody at the camp speaks Norwegian.
I think it's Norwegian.
Yeah, I think it's Norwegian.
So there's a big miscommunication. Eventually, I think they either shoot a shot or they try to aim at the dog, and someone basically they get killed.
I thought they died. I just couldn't remember how, or if like one of them just like got back in the chopper and just like flew away and was like, "Fuck it, not my problem anymore."
I think they both. Is that? Am I right with that, Nate?
I think it's been a while since I watched this.
Yeah, we watched this. I feel like last year around the same time.
We did it for.
We reviewed it in
Halloween.
2020 for Halloween when there were no movies coming out.
Yeah,
that's honestly probably the last time I watched the thing.
Same.
Yeah.
So
that's what happens to at least one of the Norwegians at the beginning.
Yeah.
If someone just would have spoken Norwegian, or if they just would have spoken English, none of this would have happened. It would have been like, it's a freaking American.
Or for the only time in movie history, as a positive, if they just would have killed that dog.
Yeah, that too. Just a little better shot.
You kill that dog and everybody's problems are solved.
So close.
First in movie history.
Still might be the only. I don't think it's been surpassed.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, man. All right. Well, this was fun, guys. Should we talk about some honorable mentions?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if I can remember what they were. I mean, I had a couple sports movies like Cool Runnings and Miracle, and we mentioned Wind River already, which was on Adam's list. And, of course, the first Mighty Ducks movie, because that one actually all takes place in winter.
Yep.
Unlike the second one, which is in LA.
Yep. Yeah. What'd you have?
Sports movie. I have Johnny Tsunami, Disney classic.
Yes.
Which you wouldn't think is a winter movie, but you take the Hawaii out, or you take the boy out of Hawaii and put him in, I don't know where they fucking go, like Alaska,
Vermont.
Colorado, or something. Vermont. They go to
Vermont. They're in Vermont.
I did not.
Adam's gonna have to rewatch that entire movie now.
A whole new perspective.
Vermont.
We already mentioned I, Tonya, and Miracle, but I had Blades of Glory as well.
Nice.
Which is fun. Then Escanaba and The Moonlight, which I'm pretty sure you guys aren't familiar with. But
I have seen that though. Okay. Yeah, that's a good pull. That's a good, that's a good pull, Adam. Explain.
Okay, Escanaba and The Moonlight is a Jeff Daniels movie.
How do I spell it?
Escanaba is Escanaba, and then in.
Okay, that's probably all I need.
Yeah.
Found it.
It's about a bunch of guys going up to deer camp where they're gonna go drink beer and then go hunting. And our Jeff Daniels character has never gotten a deer in like the 40 years of them going up there. And it's primarily a comedy that has like ridiculous shit happen. But it's all winter theme and all that. It's a fantastic movie. I highly recommend you see it. You'll hate it, but I highly recommend you see it. It's very it's because they go up to like the UP of Michigan, so it's all like Uper talk, and it's wonderful. And then I had The Gray, Let the Right One In, which is
God! What?
Yeah, I had that on my honorable mentions. I was a little surprised you didn't have that on your list, Nate. I'm gonna be honest. I was a little surprised. I was like, okay, I get it.
It's number one. I put up the entire list. I just totally blanked. I'm so upset with myself right now. We're re-recording the entire episode.
I honestly, Nate, the reason it wasn't on mine, because me and you both love that movie, is the winteriness of it isn't something that I think of right away when I think of the movie. And like it is it's there and it totally counts as a winter movie, but it's just like the things I love about that movie are all these other stuff, and then it's like, and it also happens to be in the wintertime.
The thing that I noticed about that movie that I like about it, that makes it, I think, could put it in this list, is like when they're killing the that one guy, and they've got him like strung upside down in the woods, and there's like blood going all over into the snow, and it's like,
oh yeah,
this is perfect. It's just like the winter is an aspect of this movie, not necessarily like a character in this movie.
Yeah, it definitely would have been on my list in place of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I don't know where I would have put it just because of the wintry element is stronger in other movies.
Yeah,
but I'm just so upset that I forgot it. And Dylan, if you had it, I would have just fixed it right away. I would have been like, oh yeah, this one. Also,
Fate had other ideas.
Yeah, I'm so mad at myself. I did have two others. Well, one other real one, and then which I thought about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I thought about
a couple different scenes, and then just a little surprised nobody wanted to throw in the Nickelodeon movie Snow Day.
Thought about it. Okay. I honestly thought about it. Snowplow Man.
Yeah, it's not a good movie, but it fits.
I made you a whale, but I like zebras.
Come back for our next episode where Adam recites the entire movie.
Listen. You know, we do some weird quotes at the end of the show. We don't do fun ones all the time.
A couple of my honorable mentions, then we can wrap up the episode. I did have The Revenant in my top 10. I know, Nate, you hate that movie, but it is the winter element is really heavy. In fact, looking at the rest of the movies on my list and even in my top 10, I'm not sure. They all have very harsh climates, but I'm not sure. In every movie, there's at least one like refuge, like they're inside for most of it. Whereas The Revenant, he's pretty much just out there in the woods for like 3 days. Like it's like almost all outdoors. Like
Nate specifies he's inside a horse at one moment.
That is true. But just, I mean, if you're talking winteriness,
not all bad.
I feel like the winteriness scale, Revenant does a 10 out of 10. If it's just we're just talking winteriness.
If we're just talking elements, this movie's probably number 1 on the list.
Yeah, very beautiful, frozen rivers, all sorts of cool stuff. So that was on there as honorable mention. I also did have 2 Stephen King. I had The Shining and Misery, because
Misery
is definitely has a winter element.
Yeah.
But then and then also Let the Right One In. And eternal. Why can't I say it? Eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. I was honestly, like eternal spotlessness.
The best hockey movie that would for this list that I didn't even mention would be Mystery Alaska.
Yep, that's also a good one.
Also, Nate, I'm surprised you didn't have Little Women on here.
I thought about it, but not the whole movie is in winter.
Okay.
That's how Hannah was for me. So I feel you. I had one last
Dylan
one that's very similar.
So judgy right now.
All right, yeah, I guess.
I had one very similar to The Thing, but it was I forget what year it's from, but 30 Days of Night. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I thought about that one.
It's very similar to The Thing, where it's a whaling town in Alaska, and the time of the year when it's perpetual darkness, vampires come out and attack the town. And it's
because they know
it's fun.
To Google I go.
Yeah, it's like a high B movie, maybe a low B movie, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's better than the average bad horror movie.
Yeah, that's not it. Oh my God, Josh Hartnett is in it.
Yes, he's the lead.
There's some good cast in there. I forget who the main bad guy is, but you'll recognize him.
And it's a good concept.
Yeah,
is it Ben
twist
Foster?
on the vampire movie?
Yes,
Ben Foster. Yeah.
Do you guys remember in 2020 that movie Blow the Man Down?
Yes.
That would fit here too.
Oh yeah, I suppose. That would definitely count.
Danny Huston is the main bad guy. I'm pretty sure.
Marlowe
in 30 Days of Night. Marlowe.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, he's a really good bad guy.
Yeah, he's a great bad guy in this movie. Just perfectly creepy without being like a perfectly entertaining movie, like we tend to say about some of these. That's my last one. But
all right,
I can't believe you missed 30. I can't believe you missed Let the Right One In.
Yeah, bring it up one more time. Why don't you?
Fine. Mighty Ducks all the way. Got it.
No, what's funny is that usually the first thing I do when we're doing lists like this is I bring up my top 100 or whatever list and just see which of those movies fit into this category. And I didn't do that this time because I just felt like, I've got 5. I think I've thought of like everything, so I just don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And it
cost you this time.
It did.
Yep. And you also forgot to have Ice Age: Dawn of the Dinosaurs in there too. So you've been messing
really
up.
True. Yeah, my whole list.
Never stop talking about that movie.
I don't think I've ever actually even seen that one. I've seen the first 2 Ice Age movies.
That's all you need to.
Yeah. There's like 9 of them or something, aren't there?
There's a lot.
It was a long period.
Land Before Time, The Big Freeze.
Oh, there we go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they got bad after that one.
Yeah, go figure.
All right.
Well, this was fun. I liked. It's fun to get back to the lists. I'm enjoying that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, or should I put a wrap on the show?
Wrap it up.
All right. You think water moves fast? You should see ice. It moves like it has a mind, like it knows it killed the world once and got a taste for murder.